Two 7-year-old sisters quietly split one school lunch every day. A billionaire notices, assumes nothing until he learns who the food is for. What begins as a simple question becomes a promise, a shield, and a family formed by kindness, dignity, and the courage to stay when hope finally finds home. Snow fell softly over Seattle that morning, turning the city quieter than usual. The kind of snow that made everything slow down, as if the world was holding its breath. Miles Ashford stepped out of his car and adjusted his coat. At 34, he was used to attention, interviews, meetings, cameras. Today was supposed to be simple: a short visit to an elementary school, a donation, a handshake, then back to work. Inside the building, warmth replaced the cold. Children's voices echoed down the hallway, bright and careless. The lunch bell rang and the cafeteria doors opened. Miles stopped walking. Near the far wall stood two little girls, no older than 7. They were dressed almost identically in worn gray coat sleeves slightly too long. One had hair just past her shoulders. The other's was cut shorter, tucked neatly behind her ears. They were holding hands. Not playfully, not nervously, like it was something they always did. While other children rushed forward, the girls waited, patient, quiet. When it was finally their turn, the lunch server smiled and placed one tray on the counter. Just one. The girls thanked her together and carried the tray carefully to a small corner table. Miles watched as they sat close knees, almost touching, and began to eat. They didn't talk much. They took small bites, chewing slowly. Halfway through, the longer-haired girl folded what remained of the sandwich into a napkin. The other copied her exactly. Both slipped the napkins into their coat pockets. Miles felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. They didn't look like children skipping lunch. They looked like children planning something important. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, a question quietly took shape in Miles Ashford's mind. Why would two little girls save food like this? The principal spoke about community support and gratitude, but Miles barely heard her. His attention kept drifting back to that corner table now empty. After the meeting ended, Miles lingered near the cafeteria windows. The twins appeared a few minutes later, coats back on hands, linked once again. They didn't stop to talk to friends. They walked straight outside. At the bus stop, the wind tugged at their coats. One girl adjusted the other's sleeve before the bus arrived. A small gesture. Careful. Familiar. Miles watched them climb aboard and disappear behind the fogged windows. Later, as he prepared to leave, he paused near a cafeteria worker stacking trays. "Excuse me," Miles said casually. "The two girls in gray coats. They always share lunch." The woman glanced toward the door. The twins, yes. Every day. "Is there a reason?" Miles asked. She shrugged gently. "They're polite, never complain. They just save food." "Is that a problem?" he asked. "No," she said quickly. "Just unusual. Most kids want seconds. Unusual." Miles repeated the word in his head as he walked back to his car. He sat there for a moment, engine off, watching snow collect on the windshield. Two 7-year-old girls, one lunch tray, food saved, not eaten. This wasn't carelessness. It wasn't misbehavior. It was intention. Miles had seen numbers his whole life, profits, projections, risks. But this wasn't a number problem. This was a human one. And something told him that whatever those girls were protecting mattered more than any schedule he had planned for the day. He made a quiet decision. Tomorrow he would come back, not as a donor, not as a guest, but as someone willing to listen. The next day, Miles returned without an escort and without a suit. Just a dark coat, a calm pace, and no expectations. The lunch bell rang again. Children filled the cafeteria with noise and movement, but the twins stood out immediately. Same gray coats, same linked hands, same patience. One tray. They sat at the same corner table. Miles waited until they were settled before approaching. He stopped a few steps away, making sure not to startle them. "Hi," he said softly. "May I sit here?" Both girls looked up at once. Their eyes widened, not in fear but surprise. "Yes, sir," the shorter-haired girl said politely. Miles sat down. "I'm Miles." A pause. "I'm Lila," said the girl with longer hair. "I'm Maya." The other added her voice, quiet but steady. "Nice to meet you," Miles said with a small smile. They nodded and continued eating. Miles didn't rush. He watched as they split the sandwich evenly, then folded the remaining half into napkins. When Lila slid the food into her pocket, he spoke carefully. "I noticed you saving your lunch." The girls froze. Maya's fingers tightened around her milk carton. Lila slowly looked up. "Are we in trouble?" Maya asked, barely above a whisper. The question caught Miles off guard. "No," he said immediately. "You're not in trouble at all." Lila hesitated. "Please don't take it." "I won't," Miles replied. "I promise." The girls exchanged a glance silently, deciding whether to believe him. "We're not wasting it," Maya said. "I know," Miles answered gently. "I just want to understand." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Lila said quietly, "It's for our mom." Miles felt his chest tighten again. He nodded slowly, respectfully. "Tell me about her," he said. And in that moment, without realizing it, Miles Ashford crossed an invisible line from noticing to caring. Miles didn't reach for the napkin. He didn't point at their pockets. He didn't ask twice. He simply rested his hands on the table where the girls could see them, open palms, calm posture, a silent message. "I'm safe. I won't take anything from you," he said gently. "You did nothing wrong." Maya's shoulders loosened by the smallest amount. Lila still looked like she was bracing for a rule she didn't understand. Miles kept his voice low, as if the cafeteria noise should never drown out their dignity. "You said it's for your mom." Lila nodded once. Maya nodded twice quicker, like she feared the truth might disappear if she didn't confirm it. "She's sick," Maya whispered. "Not scary sick, just tired all the time." Lila's eyes stayed on the table. "She tells us she's okay." She smiles, but her smile is smaller. Miles felt that sentence settle in him like snow, quiet, heavy, impossible to ignore. He asked carefully, "Do you have someone helping her family nearby?" The girls exchanged a look. Maya shook her head. "It's just us," Lila added fast. "We're good at it. We know how to be quiet when she rests." Miles nodded, not praising them for caring too much, but honoring their care. "You're very loving." Maya's voice trembled, then steadied. "Sometimes the fridge makes echo sounds." Miles blinked. "Echo sounds," Maya nodded. "When you open it, it sounds bigger than it is." Lila pressed her palm to her pocket. "So we bring her something, so she doesn't have to pretend she's not hungry." Miles swallowed. He didn't let his face become dramatic. He didn't want them to feel like they'd said something too sad. Instead, he chose warmth. "Thank you for trusting me," he said. "Can I help in a way that keeps you safe and keeps your mom respected?" Lila finally looked up. How Miles breathed in, then spoke like an adult, making a careful promise. "First, you both eat until you're full. Then, if you still want to bring something home, we can do that without any secrets that make you small." Maya stared at him. "Is that allowed?" Miles smiled softly. "We'll do it the right way. With the school's help. With your mom's permission." Lila's lips parted as if she wanted to believe. "You won't tell people I won't," Miles said. "No one gets to turn your life into gossip." Maya blinked hard. "Okay." And just like that, Hope stepped into the room quietly, respectfully, like it had been invited. The bell was still a few minutes away, but time felt different at their table, like the world had paused to listen. Miles pulled a small card from his coat pocket and placed it on the table between them. It wasn't glossy. No flashy logo. Just his name and a phone number. "This is my office line," he said. "You don't have to use it. It's only there if your mom ever wants to talk or if the school needs to reach me. Lila stared at the card like it was something fragile. Are you a principal? Miles let out a quiet laugh. No. I run a company. But today I'm just someone who noticed you. Maya leaned closer. If our mom calls, will she get in trouble? No, Miles answered immediately. Getting help is not trouble. It's courage. A cafeteria volunteer passed by and glanced at the girl's pockets. Her eyebrows lifted in almost question, the kind adults ask with their faces. Miles met her eyes calmly. They're okay, he said, steady but polite. They're not doing anything wrong. The volunteer's expression softened. She nodded and continued walking. Maya exhaled, tiny and relieved. Lila's fingers hovered near her pocket, as if checking whether she still had permission to exist. Miles noticed and spoke softly. No one will shame you. Not here. Not while I'm around. Maya studied him. Why Miles paused. He could have said something heroic, something dramatic. But children don't need speeches. They need truth they can hold. Because I know what it feels like when adults don't look closely, he said. And I don't want that to happen to you. Lila's voice was small. But you don't even know us. Miles nodded. Then I'll start by knowing you properly. Maya suddenly held out her pinky finger. Promise you won't let people talk about us? Miles didn't hesitate. He extended his own pinky. I promise, he said. Lila added her pinky too, joining the little chain. 3 pinkies linked. A tiny bridge made of trust. When the lunch bell rang, the girls stood up. For once, they didn't rush to hide their napkins. They simply tucked them away calmer now, like someone had finally said the quiet part out loud. You are not doing something shameful. Before they walked off, Lila looked back and asked, Will you come tomorrow? Miles smiled. Yes. Maya nodded, satisfied, as if she'd just secured something priceless. Not money, stability. That afternoon, Miles did the opposite of what most people expected a billionaire to do. He didn't post about it. He didn't announce it. He didn't send someone else to handle it. He went to the school counselor's office and asked for a private meeting. Ms. Darya Nguyen greeted him with calm professionalism. Mr. Ashford. How can I help? Miles sat down and chose his words carefully. 2 students, twins. Lila and Maya Hart. They've been sharing one lunch and saving part of it. They told me it's for their mother who's been ill. Ms. Nguyen's face softened, but her voice stayed steady. Thank you for bringing this to me with care. I don't want anyone labeling them, Miles said. No rumors, no shame, no spotlight. Ms. Nguyen nodded. We can support the family through existing resources, quietly and respectfully. First step is contacting the parent offering help, not accusations. Miles exhaled. Good. And lunches. We can arrange discreet meal support, Ms. Nguyen said. No special lines, no visible markers. Just enough. Miles leaned forward. I can fund it through my foundation, but I don't want their mother to feel bought. Then we frame it as community support, Ms. Nguyen replied. A bridge, not a debt. Miles nodded. Exactly. The next day, the twins found a different kind of lunch waiting for them. 2 full meals, nothing flashy, nothing excessive, just normal, complete lunches like someone had quietly decided their bodies deserved the same respect as everyone else's. Inside Maya's bag was a folded note on plain paper. You are allowed to be full. Maya stared at it, eyes wide. Lila, is this for us? Lila read it twice. Her mouth trembled, then steadied. I think. Yes, they ate slowly at first, like their minds didn't trust their plates. Then the tension in their shoulders loosened bite by bite until Maya whispered something that sounded like a confession. This tastes better when you're not scared, she said. Lila nodded, eyes shining. Yeah. Still, they saved an apple. Not because they had to, because love for them was a habit. But now it wasn't a habit that emptied them. It was a habit that could finally exist alongside care. That evening, Elena Hart stared at her phone like it was a door she wasn't sure she deserved to open. The number belonged to the school. Her stomach tightened, not with fear, but with the familiar reflex of a mother who had learned to brace for bad news. She answered quietly. "Hello, Miss Hart," the voice was gentle. "This is Daria Nguyen, the school counselor. I'm calling because Lila and Maya are doing wonderfully, and because I'd like to offer support." Elena's throat tightened. "Did they do something wrong?" No, Ms. Nguyen said immediately. "They're kind, respectful, and very responsible." Elena gave a small, tired laugh that held no humor. "They always have been." There was a pause, soft, respectful, like Miss Nguyen was making room for Elena's pride to stay intact. "I've noticed," Miss Nguyen continued, "that sometimes very responsible children are trying to carry adult worries. Not because a parent fails, because a parent is doing their best." Elena's eyes stung. She blinked hard, refusing tears, like they were a weakness. "I'm trying," she whispered. "I believe you," Miss Nguyen said. "Would you be open to meeting at school tomorrow, just to talk about resources, meals, community support, and anything you feel comfortable sharing?" Elena hesitated. Her first instinct was to say no, not because she didn't need help, but because help often came with judgment. Then she looked across her small apartment. On the coffee table were 2 neatly folded napkins and a saved apple, her daughter's careful offerings. Elena's chest ached, not with shame, but with love so big it felt heavy. "Yes," Elena said softly. "I can come." "Thank you," Ms. Nguyen replied. "And one more thing, there is a community supporter who noticed your girls and wants to help respectfully. No publicity, no pressure." Elena's eyebrows knit. Who? Ms. Nguyen didn't dramatize it. "His name is Miles Ashford." Elena froze. Of course she knew that name. Everyone in Seattle did. Billboards, interviews, headlines. A billionaire. In her life. Connected to her daughters. Elena's heart pounded, not fear, but disbelief. "Why would he care?" she whispered. Ms. Nguyen answered simply, "Because he sat with them, and he listened." After the call, Elena sat in silence for a long time. Then she moved to the couch, where Lila and Maya slept close together, hands linked even in dreams. Elena brushed hair from Maya's forehead and whispered, "You don't have to carry everything, babies." Outside, the city lights glowed through falling snow. Inside, for the first time in months, Elena allowed herself a thought that felt dangerous and beautiful. Maybe we're not alone anymore. Elena Hart arrived at the school early, scarf wrapped carefully around her neck, hands folded like she was holding herself together. She hadn't slept much. Pride does that, it keeps you awake rehearsing explanations no one has asked for yet. Ms. Nguyen greeted her with a warm smile and led her to a small counseling room. Sunlight filtered through the window, soft and forgiving. When the door opened and Miles Ashford stepped inside, Elena froze. She recognized him instantly. The face from magazines, from screens, from conversations that never included people like her. She stood halfway from her chair. "Why is a billionaire involved with my daughter's lunch?" Miles didn't rush forward. He didn't reach out. He stayed exactly where he was, giving her space. "Because I noticed them," he said simply. "And because they trusted me enough to tell me about you." Elena's jaw tightened. "They shouldn't have to explain our life to strangers, I agree," Miles replied gently. "That's why I'm here, to ask permission, not take control." Ms. Nguyen watched closely, ready to step in if needed. But Elena didn't look angry. She looked tired. Miles continued, choosing every word carefully. "Your daughters are kind, thoughtful. They were trying to protect you." Elena's eyes filled despite herself. "They shouldn't have to." "No," Miles said. "They shouldn't." Silence settled in the room, not awkward, honest. Elena exhaled slowly. "I didn't ask them to save food." "I know," Miles replied. "This isn't about blame. It's about support." Elena searched his face for pity. She found none. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. Miles answered without hesitation. "For your girls to eat without worry. For you to have help without shame. And for everything to be done properly through the school, through community programs, and only with your consent." Elena glanced at Miss Nguyen, then back at Miles. "No stories, no photos, none," Miles promised. "Your privacy comes first." Another pause. Then Elena nodded once. Okay. It wasn't surrender. It was trust offered carefully, like a fragile glass placed on the table between them. The support began quietly, exactly as promised. No special lines in the cafeteria, no whispers, no labels. Lila and Maya simply opened their lunch bags to find full meals every day. Nothing extra, nothing obvious. Just enough. At home, Elena received a grocery delivery scheduled through a community program Ms. Nguyen had helped arrange. The receipt listed community support services, not a billionaire's name. Elena sat at her kitchen table and stared at the box. Soup, bread, fruit. Simple things. Her chest tightened, not with humiliation, but with something unfamiliar. Relief. When the girls came home, they froze in the doorway. "Mom, did you buy this?" Maya asked. Elena shook her head slowly. "No, we got help." Leela's eyes widened. "Are we in trouble?" Elena pulled them close. "No, sweetheart. We're being cared for." That night, the girls ate until they were full. Then Lila quietly set aside an apple and placed it on the counter. "For you," she said. Elena smiled, tears threatening. "Thank you." The next day at school, a subtle tension hung in the air. A parent volunteer noticed the twins' fuller lunches and murmured something to another adult. Nothing cruel, just curious. Lila noticed. Maya noticed too. They grew quiet again. Miles arrived that afternoon as if by coincidence and sat with them. When a glance lingered too long, he met it calmly. "They're fine," he said to no one in particular. "Just kids having lunch." The looks faded. Maya leaned closer to him and whispered, "Are people mad?" "No," Miles said softly. "Sometimes people don't understand. That's not your job to fix." Lila studied him. "You're not leaving, right?" Miles smiled gently. "Not today." That answer seemed to settle something in her chest. Meanwhile, Ms. Nguyen helped Elena schedule a medical appointment. Not rushed, not dramatic. Just responsible care. Elena told Miles later, "I don't want my daughters thinking help means weakness." Miles nodded. "Then we make sure they see it as teamwork." Slowly, something shifted. Lila raised her hand in class for the first time in weeks. Maya laughed out loud during recess without checking who was watching. Small changes, but small changes are how healing announces itself. The misunderstanding arrived quietly. A comment here, a question there. "Do you know why those girls get extra food? I heard someone important is involved." Nothing loud, nothing cruel, but enough. One afternoon, Lila came home unusually silent. She placed her backpack down carefully and sat on the couch. "Mom," she asked, "are we different?" Elena's heart sank. "Why would you ask that?" Maya added softly. "Someone said we get special things." Elena sat between them, steadying her voice. "You get what you need, just like everyone else should." "But people look," Lila whispered. The next day, Miles noticed it too, the subtle watching, the glances that lingered a second too long. He didn't confront anyone publicly. He asked for a meeting. That afternoon, he spoke privately with the principal and Ms. Nguyen. "We need to be clear," he said calmly. "This support isn't special treatment. It's access." The principal nodded. "We can expand meal support school-wide." Quietly, Miles agreed immediately. "Good. No child should feel singled out for being fed." By the end of the week, a broader program was announced. No names, no explanations. Just more options for families who needed them. The whispers stopped. At lunch, Maya looked around in confusion. Other kids have the same lunches. Miles smiled. That's how it should be. Lila tilted her head. So we're not different. No, Miles said. You're just kids. That evening, Elena received a short message from Ms. Nguyen. The issue has been handled. Your girls are protected. Elena sat quietly, relief washing over her. Later, she texted Miles a simple thank you. He replied just as simply, they deserve peace. When Lila and Maya fell asleep that night, hands still linked, Elena watched them breathe slow, even unafraid. For the first time in a long while, the apartment felt steady. Not rich, not perfect, just safe. And that was more than enough. The assignment came home folded neatly inside Lila's backpack. Bring a family photo for class, the paper read. It can be recent or old. Lila stared at the words for a long time before handing the paper to her mother. Elena read it once, then again. Her chest tightened not with panic but with a quiet worry she hadn't expected. Photos were frozen moments, and lately life hadn't felt still enough to capture. Maya watched her closely. We can use the one from before, right? Elena hesitated. Of course, she said, though her voice wasn't as certain as she wanted it to be. That evening, Elena scrolled through her phone. Old pictures appeared, birthday cakes, messy smiles, days when her energy had filled the room instead of running out halfway through the afternoon. Lila leaned against her shoulder. Mom, do we have one where we look happy together? Elena swallowed. We are happy together. Maya nodded slowly. I know, I just mean all in one picture. Silence settled over them. Not sad, just honest. We can take a new one, Elena said at last. But it's just us, Lila whispered, as if that might not be enough. Elena pulled both girls into her arms. Just us is a family. The next day, Maya asked Ms. Nguyen if they could use the school camera. Who do you want in the picture? Ms. Nguyen asked gently. Maya hesitated. Can we ask Miles? Ms. Nguyen didn't answer for her. Why? Maya thought for a moment. Because when he's around, Mom doesn't worry as much, Lila added quietly, and people don't stare. Ms. Nguyen nodded slowly. You can ask. When Miles heard the question later that day, he paused. Photos lasted. They meant something. Only if your mom is comfortable, he said. Elena considered it carefully. Then she nodded. One picture. The camera clicked. 4 people stood together. 2 little girls in the middle. A mother standing tall again, and a man who hadn't planned on being part of a family photo, but somehow belonged there anyway. The aquarium invitation came from Miles's foundation, free entry for families, no publicity attached. Elena almost said no. Not because she didn't want to go, but because joy felt unfamiliar, like something she wasn't sure she still qualified for. The girls changed her mind. Fish, Maya announced, eyes shining. They glow, Lila added seriously. At the aquarium, the world turned blue and gold. Light rippled across glass walls as fish moved like living paintings. Maya pressed her face to the glass. It's like the ocean is breathing. Miles smiled. That's a good way to say it. Elena watched him walk beside her daughters, not guiding, not leading, just matching their pace. At a jellyfish display, Lila whispered, They look like floating wishes. Miles answered softly, Maybe they are. Elena glanced at him, surprised by the tenderness in his voice. In the gift shop, the girls stopped in front of a small stuffed sea turtle. They didn't ask for it. They just looked, Miles noticed. Pick one, he said. Maya's eyes widened. But that costs money. Miles shook his head gently. It costs comfort. That's different. The girls held the turtle like it was something alive. On the way out, Elena laughed. It surprised all of them. It wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. Miles heard it and felt something shift inside him. He hadn't realized how much he'd been waiting to hear that sound. Outside, Elena said quietly, Thank you for today. Miles answered honestly, Thank you for letting me be here." For the first time in months, the girls fell asleep in the car, hands still linked, turtle tucked safely between them, and Elena realized something important. Happiness hadn't disappeared. It had just been waiting for permission. The family photo project went up on the classroom wall a week later. Maya watched her classmates study the pictures. No one laughed. No one whispered. One child pointed at theirs and said, "Your family looks nice." Maya blinked. "Thanks." Another added, "That man looks kind." Lila smiled softly. "He is." That afternoon, Miles joined them at the park near the school. No meetings, no schedules, just a bench, a cold breeze, fallen leaves. Maya pushed the turtle along the bench like it was walking. "He's brave," she announced. Lila nodded. "He always comes back." Miles sat quietly listening. Elena joined him, hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. "They talk about you when you're not around." Miles glanced at the girls. "Good things," Elena smiled. "Very." She hesitated, then added, "I was scared to trust happiness again." Miles nodded. "So was I." They sat in silence, comfortable now. Not awkward, not unsure, just present. That evening, Lila asked a question she'd been holding for a while. "Are you family?" she asked Miles. Elena held her breath. Miles thought carefully. Children deserved answers that didn't disappear later. "I'm someone who cares about you," he said, "and someone who plans to stay." Maya considered that. "That sounds like family." Miles smiled. "Then maybe it is." Elena watched the girls relax, like something important had finally been named. When they went inside, Elena said quietly, "You don't have to do more than you already have." Miles shook his head. "I want to. Not because I owe you, because I choose you." Elena's eyes filled. Not with fear, with relief. Because for the first time, being supported didn't feel like losing control. It felt like building something new, together. The trouble didn't arrive with shouting or accusations. It arrived quietly through a screen. Elena discovered it late one evening while scrolling absent-mindedly, the girls already asleep. A local community blog had posted a short piece about a wealthy donor quietly helping a struggling family connected to a neighborhood school. No names, no photos. But the details were close enough to make Elena's chest tighten. "Two young twins," the post read. "A concerned benefactor. A reminder that generosity still exists." Elena set the phone down slowly. Her first emotion wasn't fear. It was exposure. She hadn't agreed to be an example. Her daughters hadn't agreed to be a lesson. The next morning, whispers returned, subtle, curious. Nothing cruel. But curiosity can still press too close. Lila noticed first. "Why did someone ask if we're on the internet?" Maya asked later. "Are people reading about us?" Elena's hands trembled as she buttoned Maya's coat. "No, sweetheart. Not really." But she knew she needed help. She called Ms. Ngoyan, who responded immediately. Then Miles called, his voice calm, already informed. "I'm sorry," he said. "This shouldn't have happened." Elena's voice was steady but tight. "I don't want my girls discussed. Not even kindly." "You won't be," Miles replied. "I promise." He didn't threaten the blogger. He didn't demand. He explained politely and firmly that children's privacy mattered, that even good intentions could cause harm, and that the post needed to come down. By evening it was gone. No apology post, no explanation. Just gone. Miles met Elena the next day at the school, not to justify himself, but to listen. "I should have anticipated this," he said. "And I didn't. I'm sorry." Elena studied him, searching for defensiveness. There was none. "Thank you for fixing it quietly," she said. Miles nodded. "Your daughter's safety comes first. Always." When Lila and Maya arrived, Miles knelt to their level. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said gently. "And if anyone ever talks about you in a way that feels uncomfortable, you tell your mom or me." "Okay," Maya nodded. Even if it's nice talking, yes, Miles said. Especially then. Lila exhaled, relief visible in her shoulders. That night, Elena realized something important. Kindness didn't become dangerous because it existed. It became dangerous when it forgot boundaries. And Miles hadn't forgotten. The days that followed were intentionally ordinary. No events, no outings, no surprises. Miles stepped back just enough to let normal life breathe again. Elena noticed the difference immediately. The girls slept deeper. They laughed more freely. The apartment felt lighter, not because anything extravagant had been added, but because something heavy had been removed. Fear. One afternoon, Elena invited Miles over for tea. Not as a donor, not as a protector, just as someone she trusted. They sat at the small kitchen table while the girls colored nearby. The sea turtle rested between them like a quiet witness. I was scared, Elena admitted. That kindness would come with conditions. Miles nodded. It often does. But yours didn't, she said. You didn't try to control the story. I didn't want a story, Miles replied. I wanted peace. Lila looked up from her drawing. We have peace now, Maya added. It's quieter inside. Elena smiled, heartful. Yes, it is. Miles watched the girls for a moment, then said carefully, I'll always check with you first, about anything involving them. Elena met his eyes. That's why I trust you. Trust wasn't declared. It was practiced. Later that week, Ms. Nguyen shared good news. The school had expanded meal support for any family who wanted it. No paperwork at first, no explanations required. Elena exhaled in relief. So the girls won't stand out. They never should have, Ms. Nguyen said. At home, Elena showed the girls the updated school notice. Maya smiled. So everyone gets help? Yes, Elena said. When they need it. Lila thought for a moment. That's better. That evening, as Miles prepared to leave, Lila walked him to the door. You're not mad at us, right? She asked softly. Miles crouched slightly to meet her eyes. Never. Maya joined them. You're still coming back? Miles smiled. Yes, tomorrow, Maya asked. Yes, Lila considered this, then said, That's what family does. Miles paused, not because he disagreed, but because the word mattered. Elena watched from the kitchen, something warm settling in her chest. Family wasn't declared by blood or money. It was built through consistency. And for the first time since her life had narrowed into survival, Elena felt certain of something she hadn't dared to hope for before. This wasn't temporary. This was real. Elena hadn't expected the envelope to feel heavy. It wasn't thick. It wasn't impressive. It was just a paycheck, her first in months. But when she held it, something inside her steadied, as if the ground had finally stopped shifting. The job wasn't glamorous. Flexible hours. Remote tasks for a nonprofit partnered with Miles's foundation. Clear boundaries. Clear expectations. Respect. That part mattered most. She set the envelope on the kitchen table and called the girls over. Lila and Maya approached slowly, like they were being invited into something important. What is it? Maya asked. Elena smiled. This is my paycheck. Lila's eyes widened. You earned it? Yes, Elena said. I did. Maya reached out carefully, touching the envelope with 2 fingers like proof might disappear if she grabbed too hard. So, we did it. Elena shook her head gently. I did it. But I couldn't have done it without support. She opened the envelope and showed them the stub, not the numbers, but the name printed at the top. Her name. Lila swallowed. That's yours. Yes, Elena said softly. It is. That night, Elena cooked soup from scratch. Nothing fancy. Onions, carrots, broth. The smell filled the apartment with something that felt like confidence. The girls helped sprinkling herbs with ceremony. When they sat down to eat, Maya looked at her bowl and whispered, This tastes like when things are okay. Elena laughed quietly. I think you're right. Miles didn't come over that night. He didn't need to. He sent a simple text instead. Proud of you. Elena stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Thank you for letting me stand on my own. Miles responded. You always were. Later, when the girls were asleep, Elena sat alone at the table with her paycheck folded neatly beside her. She thought about how close she'd come to disappearing into survival, how easy it would have been to accept help that erased her voice. This help hadn't done that. It had given her room to breathe. And for the first time in a long while, Elena slept deeply without rehearsing tomorrow's worries. The winter concert notice arrived on a Monday. Families welcome, the flyer said, decorated with paper snowflakes. Elena wanted to go, she really did. But that afternoon her energy faded quickly, one of those quiet reminders that healing didn't move in straight lines. She sat on the edge of the couch, breath-shallow disappointment, sharp but familiar. Miles noticed when she called. I hate missing things, Elena admitted. They've already missed enough. Miles paused. I can take them, he said carefully. Only if you're comfortable. I'll sit in the back. I'll record it for you. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, then nodded. Okay. At the school auditorium, Lila and Maya stood on stage with their class sweaters a little too big, hands clasped in front of them like anchors. They scanned the crowd. Then they saw Miles. He didn't wave. He didn't draw attention. He simply met their eyes and smiled. Their shoulders relaxed instantly. They sang. Not perfectly, but clearly. Bravely. Voices steady in a room full of listening adults. Miles recorded the entire thing, keeping the camera low, steady, respectful. After the applause, Maya ran up to him, cheeks pink. Did you see us? I saw everything, Miles said. You were wonderful. Lila handed him a folded piece of paper. For you. Inside was a drawing, 3 figures holding hands. 2 small, 1 tall, a heart floating above them. Miles swallowed hard. Who's this? Maya answered without hesitation. Us. And the tall one, he asked. Lila smiled. You. Because you stay. Miles didn't cry in front of them. He waited until he was alone in the car, staring at the drawing on the passenger seat like it was something sacred. When he got home, he sent Elena the video. She watched it twice, then a third time. Her daughter's voices filled the apartment, bright and alive. Elena typed with trembling hands. Thank you for showing up when I couldn't. Miles replied. You showed up by letting them go. That night, Elena kissed her daughter's foreheads as they slept, whispering, I saw you. And for the first time, she believed it. The invitation felt strange, even as Elena spoke it out loud. Would you like to stay for dinner? Miles paused in the doorway, surprised not because he wanted to say no, but because the question mattered. Only if it's okay, he said. I don't want to intrude. You're not, Elena replied simply. Dinner was simple. Soup, bread, a small salad. The kind of meal that didn't try to impress anyone. Maya set the table carefully. Lila placed the sea turtle in the center like it was part of the family. He watches, she explained seriously. Miles smiled. Good. I feel safer already. They ate together, talking about small things, school projects, favorite animals, why soup tasted better when you blew on it first. Halfway through the meal, Maya asked, Do you get lonely? The question landed softly, but it landed. Miles considered it. Sometimes. Lila tilted her head. Who do you eat dinner with? Miles answered honestly. Usually by myself. Maya frowned. That's a lot of quiet. Elena met Miles's eyes across the table. It can be. After dinner, the girls cleared the plates without being asked. A new habit, confidence disguised as routine. Later, as Lila and Maya brushed their teeth, Elena and Miles stood in the small kitchen. I don't want you to feel obligated, Elena said quietly. To us, to staying. Miles shook his head. I don't feel obligated. I feel chosen. Elena exhaled. I'm scared to trust happiness, so am I, Miles said. But I'm willing to try slowly. Maya peeked around the corner. Are you coming back tomorrow? Miles smiled. Yes. And the next day, Lila asked. Yes, Maya thought carefully. Forever, Miles didn't promise forever like a fairy tale. He promised it like an adult. I will do my best to be here for a very long time, he said. The girls accepted this, satisfied. As Miles left, Elena stood in the doorway and watched him walk away, not disappearing, not distant, just part of their rhythm now. She closed the door and leaned against it, heart full and steady. This wasn't rescue. This was connection. And for the first time, it felt like something that could last. The conversation didn't begin with paperwork. It began with a question Elena had been carrying quietly for weeks. What happens, she asked one evening, voice steady but careful, if I get sick again? Not badly, just enough that I can't pick them up from school. Miles didn't answer right away. He understood the weight behind the words. This wasn't fear. It was responsibility. We plan, he said at last. So no one has to panic. Ms. Nguyen helped them take the next steps, slowly, transparently, and by the book. Not because Elena was failing, but because she was thinking ahead. Because strong parents plan for safety. They met with a family attorney through a community legal clinic Miles's foundation supported. The room was warm, neutral, designed to make decisions feel human, not intimidating. This is about consent and clarity, the attorney explained gently. Emergency guardianship planning. Backup care. Nothing changes unless you want it to. Elena listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions. Miles stayed quiet unless invited to speak. I don't want my daughters to feel like they're being handed over, Elena said. They won't be, the attorney assured her. This is about adding support, not replacing you. When it was time to choose, Elena looked at Miles not with uncertainty, but with a calm she hadn't felt in a long time. You've already been showing up, she said. I want it to be official in case life gets messy. Miles swallowed. I'm honored, and I'll follow whatever boundaries you set. They signed nothing that day. They took the papers home, read them again, slept on the decision. The next morning, Lila asked, why were you talking about plans? Elena knelt to her level. Because loving someone means making sure they're safe. Maya tilted her head. Does that include Miles? Elena smiled. Only if you want it to. The girls didn't answer immediately. They exchanged a look, the same look they used when deciding how to split a sandwich. Finally, Maya said, he stays calm. Lila added, and he doesn't leave. Elena nodded. Then we'll choose him. Together. When they returned to the clinic, the signatures felt less like legal marks and more like promises written carefully without drama. Afterward, they went to the park. No celebration, no announcement, just swings creaking softly in the afternoon light. Miles pushed gently, matching the girls' laughter, staying present. Elena watched them and felt something settle into place. This wasn't rescue. This wasn't charity. It was a family choosing each other deliberately, responsibly, and with love that didn't rush ahead of itself. And for the first time, the future didn't feel uncertain. It felt prepared. Spring arrived gently that year, as if Seattle had learned patience. 1 year after the twins had first shared a single lunch, the city looked different to Elena, not brighter, but steadier. The kind of steady that came from knowing what tomorrow might ask of you and being ready. Lila and Maya were 8 now. Their coats still fit, but their sleeves no longer swallowed their hands. Their laughter came easier, louder, less cautious. At school, something small but meaningful had changed. The cafeteria no longer felt like a place where children were measured by what they brought or didn't bring. A quiet program had been introduced, no forms handed out publicly, no announcements made over loudspeakers. It was simply called the warm table. Any student could sit there. Any student could eat. No questions asked. Miles had insisted on one thing when the idea was proposed. No names on the sign. No donor recognition. Warmth doesn't need credit, he'd said. Elena watched from the doorway one afternoon as Lila and Maya helped a younger student carry a tray. "You can sit with us," Maya said easily. The child smiled, relief clear on their face. Elena's chest tightened, not with sadness but with pride. Later that week, Elena received her second promotion at work. Still remote, still flexible, still hers. She printed the email and placed it next to her first paycheck on the fridge, not as proof, as gratitude. That evening, Miles joined them for dinner, by now a normal thing. No hesitation at the door, no formality. Maya talked excitedly about a science project. Lila explained her drawing of the ocean, complete with floating wishes and brave turtles. After dinner, Elena brought out a small folder. "I want to show you something," she said to Miles. Inside were copies of the guardianship documents, now finalized, neatly organized. "I've never felt trapped by this," Elena said quietly. "I've felt supported." Miles met her eyes. That was always the goal. They stepped onto the balcony, city lights flickering below. "I used to think asking for help meant losing control," Elena said. "Now I think it means choosing who stands with you." Miles nodded. "And choosing how." Inside, the girls were laughing, their voices light and unguarded. Maya suddenly called out, "Miles, come see." They rushed in together. On the table lay a handmade sign in bright marker letters. "The warm table, family only." Lila explained seriously. "It's where we sit when we're together." Miles smiled, emotion catching in his throat. "I like it." That night, as the girls fell asleep, Elena watched them breathe, slow, peaceful, safe. She turned to Miles. "I don't know what the future holds." Miles answered softly. "I know we'll face it together." Outside, the city hummed. Inside, a family rested, built not by chance, but by care, boundaries, and the quiet courage to stay. And somewhere between a shared lunch and a shared life, Warmth had found a permanent place at the table. The cake leaned a little to the left. Elena noticed it as she set it on the table, pink frosting smoothed with more hope than precision, sprinkles scattered like confetti that hadn't quite landed where it planned to. She smiled anyway. "Perfect," Maya declared. Lila nodded solemnly. Cakes don't have to stand straight to be good. It was their 8th birthday. The apartment hummed with a gentle kind of joy, the kind that didn't rush, didn't shout, didn't ask to be photographed. Balloons floated lazily near the ceiling. Paper crowns sat crooked on small heads. The sea turtle watched from the center of the table as always. Miles arrived with a small bag and no fanfare. "No speeches," he said lightly. "I learned my lesson." The girls laughed and pulled him inside by the hands. When the candles were lit, Elena paused. "Make a wish." Maya closed her eyes tight. Lila followed, lips moving silently. They blew together. Smoke curled upward, thin and brief, like worries that didn't need to stay. After cake, Miles handed Elena the small bag. "This is for all of you." Inside were 3 simple bracelets. Not expensive, not flashy. Soft leather, each engraved with a single word. "Here." Elena touched the letters, breath-catching. "Why here?" Miles answered quietly. "Because that's what mattered. When you needed help. When the girls needed safety. When I needed something real. Someone was here." Maya slipped hers on immediately. "I'm here too." Layla fastened hers carefully. "Me too." Elena clasped hers, last fingers steady. "We're all here." They sat together on the couch afterward, the girls leaning against Miles without thinking, like gravity had finally learned its job. Later, when the apartment grew quiet and the girls drifted toward sleep, Elena tucked them in. Lila reached out and held her wrist thumb, brushing the bracelet. "Mom, yes, sweetheart. Do families always start like this?" Elena smiled softly. They start in many ways. Maya added from the other bed, already half asleep. I like ours. So do I, Elena whispered. In the living room, Miles stood by the window, city lights reflecting faintly on the glass. I never planned this, he said when Elena joined him. She nodded. Neither did I. They stood side by side, not touching, not distant, just present. I used to think being needed was a burden, Miles continued. Now I think it's a privilege, when it's chosen. Elena looked at him. You were chosen. He smiled. So were you. A year ago, Elena would have been afraid of that sentence, afraid of what it might demand, afraid of what it might take away. Now it felt like something being added, not rushed, not overwhelming, just steady. The next morning, sunlight filled the kitchen as the girls ate breakfast, chattering about school and weekend plans. Maya asked if the turtle needed a birthday too. Lila insisted it did. Miles poured juice. Elena watched him from across the room, how naturally he fit into the small rhythms of their life. Not as a rescuer, not as a guest, as someone who stayed. At school that week, the warm table sign was replaced with a new one written in careful block letters by a child's hand. You belong here. Elena saw it during pickup and felt tears rise not from pain, but recognition. That was the truth they'd built. Belonging didn't arrive with money or promises or dramatic gestures. It arrived with consistency, with boundaries, with listening, with showing up again and again. That evening, as the four of them sat down to dinner, soup, simmering bread, warm laughter easy, Miles raised his glass. To here, he said simply. Elena lifted hers. To choosing each other. Maya clinked her cup enthusiastically. To cake. Lila smiled. To staying. Outside, the city carried on busy and bright. Inside, a family ate together, unremarkable in the best way. And if anyone had asked how it all began, the answer wouldn't have been dramatic. It began with one lunch, one quiet question, one decision to be here. And that was enough. Did this story touch your heart? Let us know how you felt. Rate it from 1 to 10 in the comments below. If it moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Don't forget to tap the bell so you never miss our next heartfelt story. Click the end screen to watch more emotional journeys. See you in the next one.